Today we are going to build the Phoenix V1, a wireless motion activated alarm with remote monitor. And then if I move in front of the sensor, it's the alarm and you can hear it beep too. Welcome to Dirk's Bench. We're going to start off with assembling the motion activated transmitter. So pretty much what we're going to have is a little motion sensor. This is a SR505. You can pick these up on like Temu and stuff for really cheap. And then we're gonna have this little controller board. This is the ESP32-C3 SuperMini, and this has built-in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So we are actually gonna build a wireless transmitter with the motion sensor. So we'll detect motion and transmit it over to another receiver somewhere else. So it's gonna be a pretty simple project. But it'll be fun, so let's do this. First thing is we need to remove these pins so it'll fit in our housing. Alright, we got that all cleaned out. Needs to be cleaned off a little bit. But we got the wires out, finally. So next thing we need to do is we will add some wires to this. So we have power, signal, and ground. So I'll just use a black wire for ground, a yellow for power, and looks like we'll use orange for signal. Alright, I got that trimmed up, we got the wiring on there. Alright, here's the little 3D printed housing we're going to be using. The sensor just goes in the front hole there, and then the board goes in the bottom there and locks into place. So we don't need much wiring. I think we'll loop it around like that. The 5-volt line here and ground to here. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's see, this faces opposite directions. So we'll just add a little service loop in here so we can stick it in the housing. Ground to ground. And we'll tie this to 5-volt power. And then this, we'll tin that up, and this goes to GPIO 5. So let's tin this up first. Alright, and our signal, our output signal of this SR505 goes to GPIO 5 over here. So we'll just loop this over here to 5 and solder that in there. So there's that, nice and easy. So here's the little antenna on here, and we are going to add an antenna to this to get us some better range. So this is about 32 millimeters long. I just cut it, and what we're going to do is we're going to solder it to this side of the pad over here, and it should give us some better gain. So we'll just kind of solder it just like that. Alright, so we have this all ready to go in the housing. There is an optional LED that you can add to kind of establish a link for a link light, but I'm going to keep this one small and leave that off. So I'm just going to install this as is. So what you do is you can see we got on the housing here, we got the USB-C cut out, so we'll slide that in there, and if you can see in there, there's little locks, so that board will just slide in and lock down, and then we'll attempt to push this in there. So there we go. So that goes in, That just snaps down in there. That way when you push it in, it'll have something to back up to. Now we just got to get this little sensor in here, which is why we added the extra wire. So that will just push in there, try to get it as close to the front as you can. Then there's a little hole in the lid, so you can push your antenna through, and just snaps together just like that. So there it is, our little tiny, we got the USB, we'll power it from there. If you do need to open it up, there's a little groove here. You can pop it open. And that's the sensor part. Now for the transmitter. This board where we will have an alarm light, and it'll have another link light, and then we'll put this little buzzer in there too, so it'll make a noise. So anytime this gets triggered, it'll send a signal over to this guy, and it'll beep and light up a light for you. So all we need is our little 3D printed housing. The files are included, and we have this passive buzzer. We want to do the passive, not the active, and then you can change the frequency and stuff like that. And then we have our 2 LEDs and some 220 ohm resistors, and then my favorites, these little ESP32 SuperMini boards, the C3s. I love these things. So let's get going on this. So first thing I'm gonna do, so the LEDs are gonna mount in here, and same with the buzzer. First thing I'm gonna do is add some resistors to these LEDs. So let's get our little grabber here, and what I'll do is install on the positive lead, which is the longer one. We will install these resistors and then put some shrink tube over them. So what I'm going to do is take the long lead, cut it short, get our 220 ohm resistor, cut one leg down on that as well, and then try to position this for soldering. Alright, there's one. Do the same thing to the other one. Positive lead. Alright, and then we're going to shrink tube them. Okay, so we got resistors done. Next thing up, we got our little buzzer. So we have a positive lead here and the negative lead. So we'll go ahead and solder a positive and a negative wire onto that. Alright, now we got our positive and negative leads on there. We could add some shrink tube to that just to be safe. Alright, got that done. Now let's put our LEDs in the housing. So I'm going to do, there's an alarm and a link. I'm going to do the red for my alarm. And what I'm going to do is put the negatives towards the middle. And then I'm going to do the blue light for the link. So let's go in like that. So I got alarm and link. And then I'll kind of move these to the side and twist these together. Try not to break them. And then we have our buzzer. So the buzzer will just push right in. I'm going to do the negative towards the inside over here as well. And what I'm going to do is just kind of bend this over. And we'll connect all these grounds together. Okay, I'm going to solder all these grounds together. Alright, now we got our 2 lights, ground, and our buzzer output. What we're going to do is connect up the alarm LED, which is red on this, to GPIO 7. So there's 7 there. And then the other LED is going to go to GPIO 4. So let's connect that now to kind of hold it here. Alright, and then our buzzer output is going to go to GPIO 6, which is up here. And then we have our ground wire, will go to ground. We'll do a little bit of a loop on this thing. Okay, so we got all that wired up. Last thing we need is an antenna. We are going to extend the range of our receiver here by adding a little homemade antenna. So it's about it's 32 millimeters long, and what we're going to do is we're going to just solder it on right on the side of this. This is actually the onboard antenna, but it's pretty bad. Alright, just like that. Looks good. So the housing here, it'll hook in the front there, and then there's little clips on the back to hold the board in. So what we'll do is we'll push the board in first and try to feed it up through the hole here. Just need to make sure nothing's gonna short. Guess we'll find out. But there it is. Little tiny box. So we got our transmitter and our receiver. And we just need to program them and check them out. Alright, we got these done. The Phoenix V1s. So I figured let's plug them in and try them out. I'll show you how this works. Got them all programmed already. I'm just going to run it off a little battery pack so we can see what it does here. Alright, I'm going to try to hold it really still. So every time it triggers, it'll... So the blue light, this is my link light saying we got a link. And then if I move in front of the sensor, it's the alarm, and you can hear it beep too. It takes like 6 seconds to shut off if you hold really still. And then if you move, get the trigger.